it's all this person's fault, and it's
everyone's
not.
got equal. Everyone's got equal blame in it. I feel like with this
Yeah,
situation.
but I think that we agree on this. You think going Jacoby at least this weekend is the right decision, yeah?
Yeah, but I'm also on the same token, like, well, you put him out there the last 2 weeks and pulled him. Why not just just keep giving him cracks at it? Like you get taking him off the field, I think, is the ultimate confidence breaker. Being someone that's like played team sports before, like getting benched like sucks. It makes you feel like I can't do it. You don't believe in me. So like them rolling him back out there, I think would have at least made what they've been saying the last 15 weeks at least be consistent,
I think that's interesting because I've also played team sports. And like if I were to get benched, I would be like this. It depends on like why you get benched, right? Like if you think you're getting benched because your coach is being unfair, then you're probably going to spiral a certain way. But I think Sam can look in the mirror and be like, I'm getting benched because I have not played well. And so I think I see it as a chance to be like, okay, the pressure's off. I can take a deep breath. I can reset. I actually think this is the best thing for him in the same way that it was good for Kirk getting benched early in his career that allowed him to be pulled out of that spiral. So you don't keep, spiraling to the inevitable. And maybe we're already past that. Maybe we've passed the point where he is cooked for his career. But if not, and you pull him out just before he drowns, if you will, like you saved his life instead of, saying, hey, well, just go try again, kid. He's like, I can't swim. Somebody help me.
Exactly. And to that point, I think I would think about starting him in the final game against Dallas just to give him another crack at it. Let him be behind Jacoby this week, see how Jacoby prepares, and then let him go try to swim again.
Yeah. By the way, why did I sound like Jerry Seinfeld when I was doing the swim thing? Hey, somebody help me. I just got to try to swim.
You actually have a decent Jerry Seinfeld is what I was saying. I know we wanted to get in the quarterback too. Well, maybe. I probably can have one too. But I'm not.
Your impressions are not bad.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. When we come back, Linnell has got some quarterback thoughts on where they go, not in week 17, not in week 18, but next year. And those, my friends, those might be some overreactions. We'll get to it next. Overreaction Tuesday/Thursday with Linnell here on The Hoffman Show. They get real Icarus-y, to go back to your Greek mythology days. You remember the story of Icarus, Anthony?
Not quite, Frank.
What do they teach you at Georgetown Prep? Icarus, the guy who flies too close to the sun.
Nope.
What do they teach you at Georgetown? Anthony, I think you just put your job at risk at Georgetown Prep. Why? There's no way that they did not teach you the story of Icarus at Georgetown Prep.
We actually did a lot of Greek mythology, though. We didn't talk about Icarus flying too close to the sun.
Yes, you did. You don't remember it. I feel very confident. Who can we call at prep to confirm this?
I mean, I will just do that right now, actually.
Okay. I would like you to ask someone of authority, do we teach about Icarus?
2 hours later.
Did we ever check in on that, Anthony?
Yeah, my classmates actually texted me and said, yeah, we've done it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to figure out where you were on that day of class at a later date.
You're right.
Last night, Aryna Sabalenka makes the U.S. Open final, the Belarusian player, and here's how it sounded on Belarusian television.
Aryna Sabalenka! Ваму! Что Арина недостойна звания первой ракетки мира.
Yeah.
Получите! Распишитесь!
Oh, yeah.
Rising up! Back on the street! Did my time, took my chances! When the distance, now I'm back on my feet. Just a man and his will to survive. So many times it happens too fast.
Oh,
you change your passion for glory. It's the eye of the tiger. It's the thrill of the night. Rising up to the challenge of a rival. And they lost, no survivor. Все, ребята, я сдулся.
10 out of 10 No notes. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Continuing with our Overreaction Tuesday/Thursday holiday week. Schedules are fun. Linnell is here. All right, so moving forward at quarterback, I am trying to keep my options open. Everyone else is like, they should do this. You seem to be in a I have a plan category. What is your plan?
I hear what you're saying, and I haven't heard your thoughts on quarterback next year yet. So we'll see where we're at with this. I do. When you say keep your options open, there's only so many options I think you can go. Option one to me is if you end up with the second pick, I think you make whatever you get on. And it's all dependent to me, and I'm going in circles here. It's dependent on whether or not you love a quarterback in this draft. That's what I think needs to be the first thing at hand, because the one thing I'll say about Caleb Williams, Drake May, and all of these prospects, it's December. By the time we get to April, these evaluations are going to be turned upside down for some of these dudes. Some of them have more games to play. And there's always that late riser in the process that maybe they fall in love with. So that's the first thing, is falling in love with a guy. And then there's the scenario in which you don't fall in love with a guy. Then your options are really wide open, because you can trade back. You can potentially take the luxury piece there at number 2 or 3 with the tackle or the wide receiver. And then you get into the free agent veteran quarterback market, which your hand is kind of already in because of your familiarity with Jacoby Brissett. You have Sam Howell coming back under contract no matter what, unless someone's crazy enough to trade for him this offseason, which is another scenario. But this is crazy hypothetical. If they don't love a quarterback and they have a coach that feels like they can work with Russell Wilson on a decent contract.
No.
And then
not interested. No.
It was just hypothetical. This is what the segment's for. It's overreactions.
Are you just doing that to get a rise out of me, or do you actually think that Russell Wilson would be? I mean, he hasn't played bad ball this year, but like, I've just heard too many stories about how that dude is a weirdo. I don't want him mentoring the next guy.
Well, I hear you on that. And
Pablo Torre did a whole Pablo Torre finds out episode about it.
If this ends up being the headline for the segment, I'm going to be very upset. So I hope Digital is listening on that, because I know how that could get. But no, hypothetically speaking, though, you can go the bridge quarterback route still and take one of the luxury pieces with your top 5 pick, or you could trade back, which I think may be the best thing to do, because you need as many pieces as possible here. And you may be able to flip and end up with 11, 12, 13 picks in this draft.
You basically just spouted my wide array of options. Fall in love with a guy, trade back, or take, if you like fall in love with Fashanu or Harrison, then like by all means, right? But that in the break, that's not what you said. I want you to say the thing you said in the break, because that is the spicy take. Well,
I think by the time we get to April, Jaden Daniels will end up being the number 1 quarterback prospect and not Caleb Williams. And I'm not a reporter. I don't speculate, but Caleb Williams is from this area, and the circles are not as small as you may think they are. Once we get through the pre-draft process, certain teams are going to be turned off by Caleb Williams and Caleb Williams camp and things of that nature. And from a football standpoint, and I'm just going to go to football, playing in Pac-12, not the best conference, I don't think he showed the ability throughout his time in college to play on schedule on a consistent basis. And he doesn't have the athleticism at the NFL level, to me, to play off schedule as much as a guy like Lamar does. And I'm saying Lamar because I think he plays off schedule more than anybody in the entire league. And he's
the best at it, for sure.
He's the best at it.
Well,
and Caleb's not that type of athlete.
Mahomes category.
Right. And he's not that type of athlete. So I don't know. He's going to have to be in a situation, to me, where he has his game refined in year one, the way Patrick Mahomes did in his first year in Kansas City, just to fine tune the things and not taking away any of the special stuff where he makes the crazy plays off schedule. I don't want him to rely on that because if you notice, like Patrick Mahomes doesn't rely on that, but it looked like he was on Monday at least, and that's what it looks like when you're relying on it.
Yeah, and he still kind of survived in that game for a little bit, but they just couldn't string anything together. Even if Mahomes at times was moving it. I think that's super interesting. I don't know enough about any of these guys to say anything definitive yet. But
me either. And I'm just saying
with Williams, with his dad already having a bunch of stuff out there in the press, and he just did a GQ article, and there's definitely some of the old guys yelling at clouds about NIL. They're actually yelling about Caleb Williams, and this guy's got some star power to him in a way that I do think some old school football people are not going to like.
Yep.
And the
not
question,
to say this group won't. Not to say this.
Well, that's
group
the thing.
Won't.
Well, there's two questions then. One, is that just stupid old people being stupid old people? All due respect to the elders. And two, does this group care? And it depends on who this group is. We don't even know who this group is yet. Josh Harris is one thing. Magic Johnson, Magic Johnson in 1979 had star power and was probably doing all kinds of stuff. And Jerry Buss was the perfect muse for that. And it was a match made in heaven. I do think that there is probably going to be someone who needs to ask the question, do the Commanders need to draft another kid from the DMV? Is that hometown thing that went wrong with Chase Young and went wrong with Dwayne Haskins before obviously Dwayne left and RIP. But is the hometown complication something where that's a problem here? And
it shouldn't be, Craig.
It sounds harsh, and you're right. It shouldn't be, but you have to ask the question.
Opposite. I think it should be literally the opposite. You're around the area where these kids grew up at. It's so easy for you to go really dig and do your proper homework and talk to the right people. That's why it's important who you have in your building, man. There's such things as football people in your building, and then you have connectors who do deal with the real life stuff. And I think they clearly lack that in that building.
No, I think that's a great point. And that's, Logan talks about the evaluation versus the scout, right? The evaluation is what does this kid look like on film? What does he play? And he always uses DeJuan Jones as an example. DeJuan Jones on film, first round pick. DeJuan Jones scout, and that's why he dropped way further than anyone thought he would. And it looks like if he can keep his head on straight in Cleveland, they got a steal because he's actually played good ball. He's played like a first rounder this year out at right tackle. But if you should be able to find out, but I think it's hard to project how will a kid handle his high school friends being around or his family and some of the complications of family. And, I don't say that in a way to be insensitive.
No, it's real life.
Because it's real stuff. And I hope the answer is they figure it out and they're like, you know what? This is all hullabaloo. We don't need to be scared. His dad likes to talk a little bit, but he's just a supportive father who's out there looking out for his kid. We're going to take care of him and we're going to provide the football infrastructure and the right mentors and the right veterans and the right everything, the right coaching staff to take advantage of what is one of the best prospects on the evaluation front that we've seen in a long time. And that's going based off of what I know what you're saying too, with his season was not what I think a lot of people expected, but dude didn't win the Heisman the year before. There's so much good tape for Caleb Williams. And so what I think Daniels is intriguing, though, to get back to your original overreaction hot take, if you will, that I do think some people will wind up with, because there's always, everyone has different boards, and some people they're I'm going to be different. I'm going to look for the things, and you wind up confirmation biasing yourself into a wrong opinion, or sometimes the right opinion. But I think with Daniels' athleticism, he's got a chance to rise.
The thing I like about Daniels too is he's went through stuff in his football career. He transferred there. He had was it Arizona State or Arizona?
Yeah,
and had to deal with things there. He's played a lot of football. I like that about him.
Yeah, I mean Caleb transferred and all that kind of stuff too. Obviously with the same coach, but went from Oklahoma out to USC, and I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting, and this is why I'm also the idea that you have to take one of these guys, especially when it's a lottery ticket type of thing. I'm still not convinced that if you think Fashanu or Harrison's a Hall of Famer, take that dude and trade. You have those 2 early seconds. Can you trade them both back into the back end of the first, and and a future third, get back into the back end of the first and take Penix if you like Penix. Like, you just have to. It's hard because
you gotta maneuver
you
the
both,
board right. You got to,
you can't. It's risky, right? The safest thing to do if you need to come out of the first 2 days with the quarterback is just take one at 2/3/4, wherever they wind up. And that's going to be your best chance to get the best player. That's the nature of it. But we've also seen 2 years ago's draft included Sam Howell, who's somewhere wildly fluctuating in the middle of the number 2 pick, who stinks, in Zach Wilson, all due respect, and Brock Purdy, who until Monday night was a leading MVP candidate and was the last pick in the draft. So, I don't know. Like, obviously, first rounders better. It's a weighted crapshoot. I think that's important to remember too. The higher you pick, the better chance, and the more players you're going to have to choose from. But it is a weighted crapshoot, and at that point, you also need to let the next coach evaluate and Sam Howell and say, like, hey, what that kid showed with different coaching, is that something where I feel like I can succeed and I can build my roster out in other ways? And I think the hard part is then, do you get stuck back in the middle? That to me is my biggest fear, is like, you build out the roster around Sam. He's good enough to be a 9-10 win guy, but not good enough to get you over the top. But then you don't really have a chance to get the next guy. That's what I would be concerned about.
And real quick, I think just based on early looks at what people are mocking, and because I haven't watched a ton of anything yet, you may be able to trade back depending on where Washington is, and if you fall in love with a guy. And I'm telling you, during this process, guys are going to get skyrocketed up the board. Like a guy like Bo Nix is probably going to go in the first round. Realistically speaking, looking on needs at quarterback, you may see 5 or 6, I think, in the first round. You may be able to double up and get a quarterback you love and a tackle. So, like,
we call that the Houston Texans model. Yeah,
keep your options open. So
100%,
you can do a lot.
And by the way, I think something else that's probably worth saying, as I think about the weighted crapshoot theory, and also my, like, getting stuck in the middle theory. Like, who are the best teams in football right now? Chiefs, Ravens, Eagles. Like, what those teams did was build really, really good rosters and find their quarterback middle to late first round or second, in the Eagles case, in Jalen. So I think there is some, as much as everyone's like, oh, you've got to take a quarterback, I think there is something to building out the roster and just being a really good, balanced football team, and understanding that you're going to create the ecosystem to incubate the quarterback. That you can, if you find the Mahomes, if you find the Hurts, if you find the Lamar, those guys don't always go 1-1 overall. It's easier that way, and Caleb Williams might be that guy, and he might be worth trading up for. If you wind up at 2, do you try to trade up to 1? Maybe, if you think he's that dude. But I do think like, the best teams in the league right now are proof that good rosters 1 through 53 win you football games. You need a great quarterback to win a Super Bowl regularly, but, like, you need that roster balance too. And that's how winners are built, That's how winners are built.
That's how you do it.
What you got for the rest of the week?
Nothing.
Oh, you get to Linnell's done talking for 20. Did we get the last of Linnell in 2023?
Until New Year's Day.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. For the YouTube stream, we forgot to hit a button to start the show. And you know what, Anthony? You can go get the fine board out of my studio, and you can put a 15-point fine on me. That's 100% my fault. That is a significant fine. But if you missed my opening thoughts on Eric Bieniemy and such, and his comments today about the QB change, you can, of course, rewind on the free Odyssey app. We were live on the radio. I just forgot to start the stream, and that's on me. However, now we bring in someone who doesn't make those kinds of mistakes, a real expert, subject matter expert on the NFL, and frankly, so much more. It's our pal Mike Jones. Time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Mike, of course, is a senior reporter for The Athletic, and he joins us now. Mike, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Craig?
I'm doing well. Happy holidays to you. Happy holidays to the family. Hope that it's been a relatively easy end of year for you, though. There's lots happening in the league that you cover, including in here. And by the way, I do want to mention, I was scrolling through my Twitter replies on Sunday night, and I saw that Mike had replied to a tweet. Mike, I did a very smart thing for my general wellness, which is I took Twitter off of my phone. So I did not ignore
smart.
your very good response to one of the tweets that I actually did put out in the game. It's just that I then decided to get off of Twitter and didn't see it until I opened my iPad or whatever device I was on later.
Hey, I have had many times that I have done that just for mental health, and so hey, I don't blame you one bit.
Yeah, but you did have some good, I think, perspective, and I'm glad that we can talk about it here on the radio instead of on that godforsaken website. I thought you had some good points about kind of how we've gotten to this point when it comes to Sam Howell and where all the different, pieces of the blame pie, if you will, start to come together. Ultimately, when you look at kind of the pecking order of reasons why Sam Howell has now been benched for Jacoby Brissett, from the kind of ecosystem around the team to how Eric approached it to Sam's skill level itself, why do you think that we're here?
I don't know if I don't think there's one reason. I think there's a lot of reasons and that went into this, and none of them were good. I think Sam was starting before he was actually ready to be a starter. I mean, look, and I know all this, the Howell Hive, all those people will be like, well, he was leading the league in passing. Well, yes, he was. Okay. Which was, great, which was nice and everything like that. But you always got to take that stuff with a grain of salt early on, because as we've seen as the season has progressed, it's not that Sam has gotten worse. It's just that defenses understand his game better, and they understand what Eric Bieniemy wants to do better. And that's why, and they've faced tougher defenses as well. And I think when you have a young quarterback, it is clear Eric Bieniemy knows how to draw up plays. He knows how to X and O and everything like that. I'm surprised as a running back that he doesn't run the ball more. But it's clear he doesn't understand how to support a young quarterback, because he's used to working with Patrick Mahomes, who's a wizard. The lack of a consistent run game, the lack of balance really put way too much pressure on this young quarterback, and also on Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew, the offensive line they put this guy behind. If you're going to put a young quarterback out there, you've got to give him two things: a really strong offensive line and a strong run game. And Sam Howell didn't have any of that, and he was dropping back to throw way too many times a game for a quarterback at his point in his career. And so that's why this thing didn't work out. And just again, these defensive coordinators are really smart. And once they figure out, oh, this is what he likes to do, they know how to take stuff away from a quarterback, from a play caller, and they know how to put them in really bad positions. And that's what we've seen throughout the second half of the season.
I love the way you put all that, because it shows how many different fail-safes had to fail for it to go this badly. Like, Sam probably could have used a little bit more time to marinate, but if you put him in the right ecosystem, maybe you can overcome that. If Eric does this, if the line is better, And when you think about your time now covering the league as you have, obviously, I think most of the audience knows Mike, of course, used to cover the Commanders for the Washington Post, but has been covering the league at large for the better part of a half decade. If not, I don't know. Mike, what is time anymore? Like 2019 was last year, but also 5 years ago. So how long has it been since you've been covering the NFL for The Athletic? And USA Today and the whole deal.
Is like a year, USA Today is 2017. I've covered the NFL as a whole between Washington and this for 12 years. So I've seen a lot of football, talked to a lot of coaches, a lot of GMs, a lot of scouts. It's not that I'm an expert. I just talk to people who are experts.
Right. Point being, though, like you've seen people you covered here span out throughout the league, obviously, and then you've been covering the league as a whole for a long time now. When you see young quarterbacks succeed and they're able to avoid some of these pitfalls that we just talked about, how do the coaches, how do the quarterbacks adapt and adjust in a way that, you know, whether it's Sam and someone taking a shot on him again next year here, or probably more likely a draft pick coming in, that you don't see these midseason dips and turns towards, you know, hey, we can't operate anymore because the defense has figured us out?
No, I mean, you've got to set the table for them. You've got to, if the offensive line is not protecting them in all these drop back situations, you've got to go with more of a run game, and you've got to go with more play action passing attack. That will buy time. That will cause a split second of hesitation in the minds of the defensive players because they know they have to respect the run. If you're not going to even try to run the football, they can just pin back their ears and come after you all the time. And so that's what we've seen right here. So if you think about the young quarterbacks that are having success in the league right now, think about C.J. Stroud. He's from that Shanahan school of offense that believes in building a strong run game and using the play action and using the bootlegs, not, moving the quarterback out of the pocket, not just being a sitting duck back there. Because, I think that's what we see sometimes when there's a scramble drill, Sam can be really good. He can throw on the run and everything like that. But at the same time, he's presses at times, and he makes some really bad interceptions on scramble drills as well. So there's just ups and downs, and there will be ups and downs with young quarterbacks. But again, he has not been supported and brought along in a way that is best for his development.
Mike Jones, senior NFL writer for The Athletic, with us. What do you think this has done for Eric Bieniemy's reputation and potential OC and head coach candidacy around the league?
I think if you have a veteran quarterback, then he is, good. And, he's shown, hey, I can, put together a snazzy passing attack and an offense that can move the ball. Now, I really would have been curious to see what he would have done with Jacoby Brissett as his starting quarterback, because we've seen Jacoby gets the ball out of his hands quickly and he moves the ball downfield. Again, also, these defensive coordinators did not have time to game plan for Jacoby Brissett. So I'm not going to say that he's amazing, but I do think that a veteran quarterback just understands, has a better internal clock, and has a firmer grasp on how to execute this type of offense. And we're going to see in the next couple of weeks. Unfortunately for Jacoby Brissett, he's going against San Francisco's defense and Dallas's defense, who are going to rip him apart because they have an offensive line that's terrible. So you're not going to see what he can also do fully, but you will see flashes of what this offense could be like with a veteran quarterback.
When you look at the top candidates around the league, GM and head coach wise, let's start with the head coach tree. There's been a severe turn towards offensive coaches. The data suggests that's typically the better hire. Obviously, there are also very clear exceptions. What's your kind of generic top 3 to 5, whatever the top kind of echelon of candidates is for you, that if you're Josh Harris and company, you'd be looking at after the season?
I don't know that you have to have an offensive coach. I think you need to have a strong leader. And I've been asking around, what kind of coach is Josh Harris looking for? And not a lot of people know because, remember, he has not been in NFL circles. So it's a lot of guesswork. But if you look at what he did in the NBA, he went after established guys, Doc Rivers, Nick Nurse, guys who, won a lot of games. He didn't go with young guys. So, does that mean it's a retread guy? Does it mean that it's, pursuing somebody by a trade? I don't know, but I think it's more of an established type of guy that would be, something that he would look. And again, it's all guesswork. Everybody I've talked to they would like to know as well. And there hasn't been a lot of whispers on, oh, Washington's coming after this guy or going after these coaches. So I don't know. I don't want to say, Ben Johnson's going to be great for them or something like that, because, again, I think that he probably would go with the veteran guy. But does that mean it's an offensive mind? Because we're seeing D'Amico Ryans as a defensive guy, and, he just armed himself with a smart offensive coordinator and Bobby Slowick, and they're having success there. We saw the Panthers go after an offensive guy because David Tepper just had to have an offensive guy with Frank Reich, and he brought in, all these different offensive minds with Jim Caldwell and Thomas Brown and Josh McCown, and they had too many cooks in the kitchen, and it was a disaster. So I don't think it has to be an offensive guy or a defensive guy. It just has to be a guy who's got a strong vision and knows how to select talent from a coaching staff standpoint and get his message across and get guys to buy in.
Yeah. Is there anybody on the executive side that you really particularly like? And again, I know there's only so much information available on who Harris wants, and he's keeping things pretty close to the vest. He's not in these NFL circles where everyone's got their sources, et cetera. But just you're around, you talk to people. Is there anybody that you've talked to over the last couple of years where you're just like, man, that's a future GM. That guy's really sharp. I know there's there's a woman in the Browns front office as well. So I don't want to say just guys, but any people around the league who you're like, yeah, future GM would be a great fit anywhere.
Yeah, I think that you do have to look at, okay, who are some of the smart teams, the smart GMs, and then, okay, who are the people training under them, whether it is in Philadelphia with Howie Roseman and his staff, and he's got guys like Brandon Hunt, who have been in Pittsburgh's organization for a long time and then came to Philly. Jeff Scott, who is actually in Washington, who's been working under him. Hear good things about him. Look at Cleveland. That's a front office that has built a really strong team. They lost their starting quarterback, both right tackle, left tackle, starting running back, and they're going to the playoffs. Glenn Cook is a guy that's in that front office that, and then San Francisco has got guys that have been being brought along under, Kyle Shanahan and, why am I blanking on there? John Lynch. So, I think that you've got to look at some of those organizations that have been a part of building something and a strong culture and then go from there. I don't like the head coach as the coach and the GM model. I think you need to have a team, and people have said, Bill Belichick. I don't think, that'd be a good idea because Bill Belichick has shown in the last several years he doesn't know how to evaluate talent anymore. So I don't know which way they go, but I would definitely be looking at some young, talented guys that have come or women who have come from winning organizations that have a strong track record of success and people who have been around smart minds for a good while.
I would say that also, by the way, fits the Josh Harris model, right? Even think back to his first head coach for the Sixers was Brett Brown, who is not the veteran established guy, but did come from the San Antonio culture. So, let's get someone from a winning program approach certainly seems to be the way that Harris likes to do things. Wrap it up here with Mike Jones of The Athletic. Totally switching gears, Mike. This Russell Wilson situation is bonkers. So for fans that haven't been locked into this over the last 24 hours, your colleague Diana Rossini had reported, amongst others, that basically Russ was told months ago, hey, man, we're going to give you this option to move your injury guarantees. If you don't, we're probably just going to bench you at the end of the season and cut you in March. And they're going to pay him $37 million. Or there's a cash number that's crazy. I think the 37 is the dead cap number. My question to you, Mike, is have you ever seen anything like this? And especially for a quarterback, by the way, who I think is 7th in the NFL in passer rating. He's not having a terrible season. He's 25 touchdowns to 8 picks. Can you remember anything like this where the contract and the divorce was happening in such a bizarre, twisted way?
Well, look, we saw Josh McDaniels do it to Derek Carr. Now, he wasn't quite as effective, but Derek Carr wasn't having a bad year, but he became the scapegoat. Remember, they sent him home for the last, 2 weeks of the season and to get, avoid the injury, aspects. I think Jimmy Garoppolo, it happened to him. So we have seen teams do it. what has been just so bizarre about this one here is just the way that Sean Payton, first the scapegoat was Nathaniel Hackett, and then it was, Russell Wilson. And, I've been asking a lot of people around about this, and it's been pretty fascinating because there have been 3 schools of thought so far from talent evaluators and coaches that I've been talking to the last 2 days. And one school of thought is that Russell Wilson can still be a starter in this league, and he got the shaft by Sean Payton. But that it just, Sean Payton didn't do a good job of adapting his offense to Russell's strengths and weaknesses. Other school of thought is that Russell Wilson isn't what he once was, and Sean Payton was frustrated that, look, I'm having to do all this stuff to support you and mask deficiencies, and why am I going to pay all this money for a dude who's not what he once was? I can do this type of stuff with a lot of running and misdirection and things like that instead of my typical West Coast offense like I did in New Orleans. I can do that with a cheaper guy who's got better upside because he's a rookie. And then the third school of thought is that it's a little bit of everybody's fault, that Russell is not what he once was. His, as a pocket passer, his strengths really are his escapability. Pocket passer, he's just okay. And that Sean Payton isn't what he once was as an offensive mind and hasn't done a good job of this. And that they also don't have around them what Russell needs to succeed. And that the Broncos gave him all that money because they thought this was going to be a Super Bowl run, and it hasn't been a Super Bowl run. Everybody screwed up on all sides, and so now they have to move on from it. So it's been interesting that everybody has different opinions, but those are kind of the 3 mindsets from the dozen or so people that I picked their brains about this.
That all tracks. I mean, it's so convoluted. Do you think the PA will have anything to say about this, like threatening basically a contractual situation, or is this more along the lines of it feels immoral, but it's definitely not illegal?
No, I mean, we see guys, they threatened, hey, look, if you don't restructure your contract, we're going to have to cut you. We see that happen all the time. That's the thing that why players are always, trying to get the guaranteed deals, because teams don't value contracts. They don't respect contracts. They'll rip up a player's contract in a heartbeat. But if a player wants to hold out or try to get his contract re-upped, a team then makes them the bad guy. So, unfortunately, this is not something that is, foreign, or it's dirty feeling, but it's not really something new.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. Mike Jones writing about all of this and much more in The Athletic. Mike, what game are you covering this weekend?
This week I'm actually, as we come down the wire, I'm keeping tabs on all the divisional clinching things. I won't be at one, but all the teams are in position to clinch, and then be ready to hit the road as playoffs kick off.
Yeah, so that means if you're following him by Mike Jones on the aforementioned godforsaken website of Twitter, that you will get multiple games worth of analysis, which is also great. Mike, thanks as always for the time. Again, happy holidays to you and yours, and hopefully I'll run into you at some point soon.
Sounds good, Craig. Hope you have a good one.
Thanks. You too, buddy. Yeah, that is Mike Jones with us here on the Hoffman Show. One thing real quick that I'll say is thank God Washington didn't trade for Russell Wilson or someone like Russell Wilson, right? Because you think of what happened with the Russell Wilson trade is right before they sold the team, the old ownership group, the estate of Pat Bowlen, they greenlit the Russ trade. So that was the old ownership who burdened the new ownership with the contract, the quarterback, and giving up all of those assets. At least Dan Snyder, on his way out, hamstrung this team in a way that there is a blank slate moving forward. Like, if you're gonna not be a good owner and you're gonna do something crazy, have it be don't invest enough on the way out, where it's just like, hey, all right, well, shoot, I guess the new guy's gonna come in, have one lost season, and then $80 million in cap space. And by the way, he got some extra draft picks in the middle of his first season, versus what the Bowlen estate did to the Walton family and the Denver Broncos.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
Good gracious.
Now.
Because now. Like,
go ahead.
Where do they go from here now? Like, are they in a total necessarily rebuild? That's a lot of
you just invest in whatever Sean Payton wants to do. You're just like, all right, man, you think you can do this with a younger quarterback? Like, we're paying you a bunch of money. We gave up draft picks for you. We're following your plan. And like, he did turn them around this year from the brutal start, and maybe it another year of bringing in their guys. And, if I'm Peyton, I'm like, hey, this is going to be a slower rebuild because we don't have any of our freaking draft picks.
No draft picks, probably not a lot of money because you got to eat a lot of this Russell Wilson contract.
Yeah, next year it could be terrible for them.
Yeah.
But what you do, I think, is you take the gigantic, because there's a thought you could you do it post June 1st.
Yeah.
And you split it over 2 years. I might just take the whole thing this year. Might just be like, we are going to eat Poopsie for a year.
Oof.
To be ready to go in 2. But we'll see. Now, Dan Snyder certainly did not leave without leaving a whole mess of issues. We're going to talk to our old friend Don Van Natta about the most recent one that has wound up in a courtroom at 6 p.m. But next, our NFL tiers here on The Hoffman Show. Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It is Thursday, 5:30. Anthony, it finally feels like the right day of the week. Mostly. It does feel a bit like a Friday, in part because I'm doing the show from home today. So it's got that Friday feeling. But I finally feel like the week is calibrated. This is the right time for us to be doing NFL tiers. Or are you not? You still feel off kilter?
Nah, I feel like it's a Wednesday, but I'm glad it's Thursday kind of thing.
That would be real bad if it was a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Can't be doing that.
That's where I feel like right now. Because, I don't know, we've only worked 3 days this week, and it hasn't fully hit me. But tomorrow, Friday, I know for a fact Friday is going to hit.
You
Fridays,
heard?
they always hit.
Yeah. You got any fun plans this weekend? What are you doing for New Year's?
I will be bringing the new year in the church.
Okay.
Yes. My girlfriend and I, we will be going to, I think we're going to Greater Mount Calvary. That's the church I went to as a kid. Yeah. And then I'll be getting a haircut tomorrow. Those are my weekend plans right now.
Bringing the new year in fresh. We'll be asleep because we're old.
Do you never wait for the count? Do you ever watch the countdown, or do you just wait?
Yeah, I mean, I used to all the time. I just at this point, I'm like, okay, it's midnight.
Go to sleep.
Midnight's the time you're supposed to be sleeping. Why would today be different?
So you sleep into the new year.
Yeah, you wake up and it's like, Happy New Year. It's 2024. And I'm rested. Now I got a day off to enjoy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not poo-pooing anybody that say, I'm like, you losers, you stay up like everybody else on planet Earth who's not a gigantic loser like me. But yeah, we probably won't be up. We have had a nice New Year's tradition the last couple of years, though. We've made like homemade snacks. So like kind of like you go to a New Year's party and they've got all the fancy like finger foods and stuff. Mm-hmm. We've made our own.
Ooh.
We've made crab rangoons. We've made pot stickers. We've made like all kinds of stuff that's really good. I mean, as you know, my wife is an excellent cook, and I'm not so bad. Like I'm a pretty good sous chef. I'm even a good chef. Just she's better. So I follow the lead and I follow instructions and we execute a plan, and that's been really fun. So if any of my friends are listening and you want to come over and have a New Year's Eve full of snacks, finger foods, probably put the college football. It's the one time a year I really kind of do watch college football and watch some of the bowl games. Although it'll be an NFL Sunday this year, so definitely have some football on the TV. And you want to leave my house by 10 p.m., then you just shoot me a text and come on over. You know? You just got to be prepared to leave by 10. That's all.
If they stay till 11, will you stay up and watch the clock hit 12?
I feel like we'd have to get to like 11:30.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily going to kick. Depending on how much I like you, I might not kick you out at 10.
Yeah.
Anthony, if you came over, we'd let you stay.
Okay.
We'd let you stay. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It's time for our NFL tier rankings. We do this every Thursday. We only have a couple more to go. Anthony, we do this in 2 weeks. There's going to be a lot of teams that have no chance because they will have officially been eliminated. But the NFL sent out this stat the other day because I kind of anticipated more teams going down to that bottom category by now. The NFL sends out like a weekly stats release that always has some good stuff. There are 24 teams still alive for the playoffs. The way they phrased it is alive for the Super Bowl. But 24 teams that are still playoff eligible, which is the second most in like 30 years. There was 26 a couple of years ago. But 24 is an extremely high number for 2 weeks to go. I think that 26 actually was all the way back in 2004. So it is rare that the league is this open with this many teams technically still alive. And yet the Commanders have been eliminated for multiple weeks, but we don't need to talk about that. We know they're in no chance. If you're new to the tier rankings, the way it works is we got 4 tiers worth of teams. We got prime contenders. We got puncher's chance, interesting but not quite good enough, and no chance. We always sort out the prime contenders first, Anthony. These are teams that we think could be in the Super Bowl. We would not be surprised if they wound up there. The Miami Dolphins beat the Cowboys in a competitive game. We have both those teams in prime contenders. I am just fine leaving them there.
Yes, I agree. I'm cool with leaving those guys there.
All right. Then you had two other prime contenders play, the Niners and the Ravens. Yes, the Ravens punked the 49ers on the road. Very impressive.
Yep.
If we wanted to do a true tier right now, the Ravens would get their own tier. But we're not Linnell. He just is a guest on the show. We don't invent new tiers by the week. We try to have some consistency week over week. I am just fine leaving both those teams here. Even if the Ravens, we acknowledge, have the nicest house in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think the 49ers will get some payback soon.
I guess
that's my.
You think they're going to play in the Super Bowl because that's the next time there's no more games between them on the schedule.
Yeah.
Soon is kind of soon.
2 months.
Pretty pumped, bro. I'm going. We're going, or at least I'm going. Are you going? Are we gonna pull this off?
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Okay.
I have like 10 flights for the first 2 months of the year already.
Ooh, that's a lot of flights.
It's a lot going on.
Hold on, time out from the tiers. Do you have, are you flying on the same airline and do you have rewards miles? And do you have a rewards credit card?
I don't have a rewards credit card, but most of my flights are pretty much the same.
So
I have one Southwest flight. Most of them are Delta though.
Do you have like a Delta Sky Miles number?
Yes.
So you're collecting points.
Yes.
Okay, good. You need to get a Delta credit card immediately. If you fly Delta on a regular basis, I have one of the Delta credit cards. And it sucks because I would rather fly Delta, if I'm being totally honest. Their flight pattern is not as good as American, so I wind up flying American more. I also have an American credit card for that reason. But Delta's got like some really good credit cards, and you can get like instant status, and you can also get like assigned depending on what level you want to get, and like what annual fee you're willing to pay. You could get like 100,000 miles pretty easily.
Oh, okay. I need to look into it.
It's like if you spend X amount in the first 3 months, then you get like 100,000 miles.
Oh yeah, that's dope.
And you'll probably wind up getting like a higher medallion status, and you get like free check bags, and you get all kinds of stuff. Anthony, we have to get your travel. This is
I'm
like
glad you told me about this.
This is like a personal. Not a pet peeve. It's like the opposite. It's like a hobby horse of mine is, hey, make sure that you're maximizing your rewards, kid.
Yeah, I need to.
All right, well, let's talk about that in the break. Anyway, back to the tiers. Chiefs, I know they looked bad, but they're still them. They're going to pull out of this. I don't know whether they're going to win the Super Bowl again, but I feel pretty confident that they're going to pull out of this, and this is still the neighborhood they belong in.
It's crazy. We haven't even considered moving the Chiefs down. Like, as up and down as the Bills have been all season, like, we haven't even considered moving the Chiefs up or down. I mean, I still think they're going to figure it out, but we say this about them every week. And I think when the playoffs roll around, they're going to be in for a rude awakening.
See, I'm still not convinced. I mean, they gave the Raiders the game last week.
Yeah, they did.
And the thing is, like, they've lost, let's see, 3 of 4? Am I reading this? Google is a very smart company. They have the worst schedule layout in the history of schedule layouts.
Yeah, they do.
All right.
But
they have lost 3 of 4.
Yep.
And they have lost 4 of 6. So going back to the Eagles' loss, they beat the Raiders, they lost to the Packers, they lost a close one to the Bills, they beat the Patriots, and then they gave the Raiders the game. And I just think that, like, this was the first week where I looked at Mahomes and was like, uh-oh. If that happens again, if they face the Bengals on Sunday and Mahomes looks panicked and, like a Mahomesian version of what Sam has gone through here, where he's just trying to do way too much, doesn't just take the layups, all that kind of stuff, then I think we should consider moving them down. However, they are still 9-6. They still win the division with a win this week. And I'm just frankly not that concerned about them because their defense is still playing at a top 5 level. And their offense still has Patrick Mahomes.
You're not concerned? I am concerned.
Okay. Concerned enough to move them down?
Nah.
Okay.
Not
more
quite.
week.
Yeah.
One more week. They lose this week. I mean, there are rules here. If you lose 3 in a row, we gotta
4 or 5. Yeah.
Yeah. We gotta move you down. That leaves, let's see, Miami, San Francisco, Chiefs, Baltimore, Dallas, and then Philly is the last team we need to consider here.
Yep.
They bounced back and won, which means they stay. And
Yeah,
Jalen, by the way, looked way better.
Yeah, he did. He still threw a pick 6, which hurt a little bit. I think they should have. Their pass defense is just so bad and really makes no sense because they just have so much talent on the back end. Darius Slay, he has to get healthy, but outside of that, they're still just terrible, man. That's what concerns me the most about the Eagles. But
I think that's fair.
Offensively, I think they're as good as anyone.
I definitely think the Niners are in a class on their own in the NFC. And not to say the Ravens aren't. I mean, the Ravens probably should be in a class of their own, but I think the next best teams in the AFC are better.
Yeah.
Miami, Kansas City, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw what San Francisco did to Dallas. We saw what they did to Philly. So, and we're going to see what they do to Washington this weekend. Yikes, bro. All right, that leaves our puncher's chance. Interesting, but not quite good enough, and no chance. We'll get to that next. The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. bringing you back with some Beyonce here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It makes us happy, if you will, Anthony Haney. All right, we will sub the Beyonce, though, for the NFL music as we continue our tier rankings. In our prime contenders category, no changes. We got the Bills. We have the Eagles. We have the Chiefs, the two defending conference champions. We have the Dolphins. We have the Ravens, the Cowboys, and the 49ers. So we got the teams that need to be there. The question is there anybody that needs to go up, Anthony, out of the puncher's chance category? I nominate for you the streaking Detroit Lions.
I knew it.
I'm just, hey, they're at the top of the next class and they won.
Mm-hmm.
It's a question that's supposed to be asked. I'm just doing the job.
I think they're deserving of it, to be honest. I think last week we talked about them possibly moving up had they went on to win their game, and also they clinched their division. I think they have a legitimate shot.
Well, they're going to be in the playoffs. We know that because they've won. Now we could take the easy way out here. You know who they play next, right?
Who do they play?
They play the Cowboys Saturday night. So we could just say, hey, if they beat the Cowboys, they're up.
Or what if it's a close game?
That too, which is why I kind of think we just do it. You know, if they go to Dallas, here's the thing. It's at Dallas. So if they're remotely competitive the way the Cowboys are at home, then I think they belong. And it's like, hey, well, if the Cowboys were to go to their place, you'd probably see a similar type of situation.
Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys have been unstoppable, basically, at home. But I'm intrigued by this game. I think the Lions are going to go compete. I think Campbell have them ready to go. I'm ready to move the Lions up.
I am too.
Detroit Lions, congratulations. The NFC North was nice, but you're officially in the prime contenders, and we know that's what you've been playing for all year.
I just hope they don't get embarrassed, though, because last time they played a really good team that was in prime contenders, they got embarrassed by the Ravens.
Yeah, don't love that. Don't love that. Okay, next up, the winners of 3 straight games, including an ugly one Saturday night against the Chargers, the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills all of a sudden belong in prime contenders once again. They do have the lowly Patriots this weekend, and then they're at Miami to close the season.
I still need to see more. Stephon Diggs hasn't gotten going yet, and I think they go as far as he takes them, to be honest. Like, yes, they've managed, win games other ways without Stephon, but I think if you're going to be a prime contender, I think you got to see, something out of Stephon. So if he goes out and has a huge game against the Patriots defense isn't no slouch.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So there is something to prove here.
I think we should move them up, yeah.
Okay, I'm good with that. And then they'll obviously face Miami, but both teams could potentially have stuff locked up by then. All right, now we have some other teams that I think the Rams stay put, easy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Seattle, do we need to do anything with them?
Nah, they stay.
I agree. Texans, I feel like they stay because we're waiting on Stroud to get back. So even though they lost, we anticipate Stroud playing this weekend, and we'll see how that goes. Which leaves us with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I don't trust them, Craig.
I don't either.
I haven't trusted them all season long, and I'm not going to start now. Oh, you're moving them.
I'm moving them. They're down. One, Lawrence is out. And so, he hasn't been able to stay healthy this year.
Yep.
And he's the only reason I would give them a puncher's chance is because, all of a sudden, if he finds it, he's really good. But he hasn't found it. He has settled into a kind of mediocre quarterback play, and for honestly most of the season, worse than that. Not something you consider top half quarterback play out of Lawrence for much of the season. They've found ways to win games at times, but I don't trust it. I think they're interesting because they have Lawrence, if he's healthy, and a bunch of other good players, Etienne, etc. But they're not quite good enough. And that's literally the name of the next category. Jags, down. Interesting, but not quite good enough. Which leaves in puncher's chance, Bills, Texans, Rams, Seahawks.
Yeah,
that feels right.
I didn't even realize they lost 4 straight.
Yeah, it's
gracious.
It's gone real downhill.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting, but not quite good enough. Steelers.
We're leaving them there. We're not. Yeah,
definition
exactly.
of it. Definition of it.
They're at the top of that.
Yeah, New Orleans.
Nah, we can leave them there.
Okay, I think I agree with that. Indy.
Leave them.
Yep. Green Bay.
Leave them.
Same. Minnesota. All these
Leave
teams are all in the same neighborhood to me.
Yeah.
Bengals.
I just feel like all these teams lost last week. I think some of them won, but for the most part.
You notice I skipped one on
did.
this list, and there's another one I'm about to skip.
Yeah.
But Bengals, same. Broncos, honestly, if we move them anywhere,
I think we move them down.
Okay.
I think we move them down.
I think the Broncos
Their season
are
is
finally
over. They've conceded. They benched
Congrats
Russ.
to the Broncos for graduating out of no chance, something that we at one point said was not possible, but you are back in no chance, and we probably should have never moved you in the first place. But you won 6 straight games, so you earned it. All right, the 2 teams that we need to consider then moving up, because Carolina, Arizona, the Giants, New England, Tennessee, Las Vegas. Honestly, maybe we need to circle. Does Vegas need to move up? We don't need to do a massive discussion here, but I don't feel like Vegas belongs with these other teams since Pierce took over. They're like a top 5 defense since he took over.
Yeah, they're playing really well. I think they're like 4-3 since he's taken over.
Yeah, so congrats, Vegas. You replaced the Broncos.
Yeah.
You're the AFC West team that has graduated out of the basement into the ground floor of the home, but you're still not allowed upstairs. So the Jets, Commanders, Chargers, Falcons, and Broncos are in no chance.
Yep.
Which leaves the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Cleveland Browns.
We got to move the Browns out.
Have clinched a playoff spot.
Yep.
And, do I really think they have that much of their puncher's chance is pretty small. But they're a 10-win team. Their defense has kind of righted itself after a little bit of a blip in the middle of the season. And Flacco has given their offense, it's a high wire act. He's throwing picks all over the place. But he keeps having 3 picks, 3 touchdown, 2 interception games. As long as he keeps having the 3 touchdowns and the 2 interceptions, you can live with. With that defense?
Yeah. I think the fact that he's been able to unlock Amari Cooper as well, because Coop is back to Dallas Coop, where he was putting up monster numbers. The fact that he's back there. I don't know why
people hate Amari Cooper. Hate may be a strong word. I don't know why people don't respect
Because he's
Amari
not a
Cooper.
vocal guy, man. I think you got to have some type of charisma with you if you're going to be that good and that dominant. He doesn't say anything, though. He just plays.
He just plays, and he gets first downs, and he makes catches, and he's tough, and he blocks, and he does all the stuff that you want out of a wide receiver except for talk.
He's nasty.
I've been on the Amari Cooper is way better than everyone gives him credit for, trained for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm being proven right again. And then there are the Bucks.
I think we'll move him up, man. That
Really?
Baker, he's found something, Craig. He's found something. Mike Evans is going crazy. Chris Godwin got involved a couple of games ago. Rashad White is taking up. The offense looks good. They get healthy defensively.
Be a division champ. You technically have a puncher's chance. I just I
You
don't
don't
think that
believe in
I think
Baker.
the Bills beat them 8 out of 10 times.
You never know.
And that's kind of my thing.
Who's checking Mike Evans from them? You
know.
don't know.
All right, no, we can move them up. I think if the Texans are up, then the Bucks are fair.
Yes.
All right, so that leaves puncher's chance, our second best category: Bills, Texans, Rams, Seahawks, Browns, Bucks. Interesting, but not quite good enough. Shrinking. Steelers, New Orleans, Indy, Green Bay, Minnesota, Bengals, Jags, Raiders, and then no chance. Everybody else.
I think playoff hopes are going to be shattered this weekend, so there's going to be a lot of people in no chance next week.
If people get eliminated from the playoffs, are they automatically in no chance? Is that how that works? Are we just going to empty out the interesting but not quite good enough category?
I mean, the purpose of this is for the Super Bowl. So if you've been eliminated, I guess you might.
I guess
well.
that by definition is no chance.
Yeah.
So there's that. I thought there's no chance we need Don Van Natta's services again before the end of 2023, but lo and behold, our old buddy pal, the Pulitzer Prize winning journalist from ESPN, who is probably most responsible on the journalism side for taking down Dan Snyder, he wrote a story yesterday on a new federal lawsuit from one of Snyder's former minority partners that is suing Bank of America around the Commander's sale. No, you don't need to fret. There's nothing in terms of Josh Harris, et cetera, that you need to worry about. But this could get ugly for the NFL if this thing goes to discovery in technical legal terms, a.k.a. whole lot of emails could go out into the public record, and it could be very bad for Roger Goodell. How bad? Don joins us next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube at the Team 980 as well, where if you're watching, you will see another face on the screen. It is one we have had so many times this year. What would be one of our final shows of 2023 without another visit from our good friend, Don Van Natta Jr., the Pulitzer Prize winning writer from ESPN. Don, just when you thought you were out, you get pulled right back in again. Welcome back.
That's right. Thank you, Craig. Good to see you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you too. So one of Dan Snyder's former, Dan Snyder's former minority partners, one of the three who had the big stake in the team that ultimately got sold, has now sued Bank of America. Interestingly enough, it is Bank of America. It is not Snyder. It is not the NFL. But they sued Bank of America in federal court, basically saying like, hey, you guys made us sell our portion of the team at a valuation of $3 billion, and then the team sold for $6 billion. You guys did the sale. What? You guys, no, that's not cool. And that is the very surface level top line of this story. As the person who has reported it out, where do you think this goes? And is this something where like, hey, they cut him the check because they don't want this to come out and he goes away? Like, who are we talking about here? What to you is the most interesting part of this?
Well, Bob Rothman, as you pointed out, Craig, was one of the three minority partners who owned a substantial stake of the Commanders since 2003. 40% was shared by these three billionaires. The key here is that Bob Rothman is a billionaire and he's angry. Those are the two key things. He feels aggrieved by Bank of America, and Bank of America, he was actually a client of Bank of America's wealth management department since the late 90s. So he felt that Bank of America owed him a fiduciary duty to protect his interests. At the same time, Bank of America is also the NFL's bank and also dealt with the sale of the Commanders. So the centerpiece of the lawsuit really goes back to that $55 million credit line that Dan Snyder took out secretly, unbeknownst to his three partners back in 2018. The bylaws of the team state that the three limited partners, all who are members of the board of directors, have to approve any major financial decision by the team. They knew nothing about Snyder's application for $55 million through the team back in 2018. And when they finally discovered it, they were quite upset and challenged this with the NFL through the arbitration process. And the NFL did nothing about it. They were not interested in investigating it. And then basically they sold, as you said, at a far less valuation than what Snyder got only 2 years later. So the lawsuit really is Rothman with a series of complaints against Bank of America, but there's quite a bit in the lawsuit as well about how angry that Rothman is and the limited partners at both Snyder and at Roger Goodell and the NFL.
So just to be clear for the audience, there's no Josh Harris involvement here. There's nothing moving forward with the team. We get to just sit back. We can enjoy reading Don's work. We can pop some popcorn, and we don't have to be as emotionally high-strung and invested as previous conversations with Don. But it's very interesting, and it could get really, really interesting if this thing goes to discovery, which in talking with you about this and reading the story, it seems like if Bob Rothman is a angry billionaire, like cutting him a check, he's not going to go away. This could get really nasty for the NFL.
This is a problem that the NFL cannot solve with a big check. Usually the NFL takes care of a lot of its dirty business through the arbitration process, which is not public. This is something that can't go to arbitration. It's a lawsuit, as we said, against Bank of America by Bob Rothman, but there could be discovery that looks into the way the NFL handled the Dan Snyder investigation. And I know from speaking to the lawyers for Mr. Rothman, that is something that they are very interested in, very curious about. In fact, there's a paragraph in the lawsuit that harkens back to a story we did at ESPN in October of 2021, Craig, that you and I have talked about a lot, about this feeling around the NFL. They'd heard repeatedly that Dan Snyder was telling people that he had gathered dirt on Roger Goodell and on fellow owners. And if his back was against the wall and he was forced to ever sell the team, he was going to use that dirt and blow up the league. That's a paragraph in this lawsuit. It's something Rothman and his lawyers are focused on. And it's something the NFL hasn't had to deal with before. Not only do they have arbitration not at their disposal, but they also don't have a big check they can write to a very motivated, very angry billionaire who wants to get the truth.
So what is the significance of him suing Bank of America and not naming the NFL, not naming Snyder in terms of the NFL's control over this?
I think that is an excellent question. And it's one of the things that was really striking to me, because when you read the complaint, there are all sorts of allegations that are leveled against both Dan Snyder and the National Football League. In fact, there's multiple places in this 45-page complaint where they are called co-conspirators in this sort of scheme that Rothman feels that he was basically screwed out of hundreds of millions of dollars. As you pointed out, in April of 2021, when Snyder bought the 40% minority ownership of the team back from these three billionaires, it was at a valuation far less than $3 billion. And just 2 years later, he closed for more than $6 billion. So that's quite a bit of money that was left on the table. And the lawsuit by Rothman against Bank of America primarily focuses on advice that was given to the three partners, in particular to the plaintiff, Mr. Rothman. The key allegation is against a Bank of America executive named Elliot McCabe. And McCabe, according to the allegations in the lawsuit, Rothman feels was looking out far more for the interests of Bank of America in growing this NFL franchise financial side of the business than he was in protecting Mr. Rothman's interests. And Mr. Rothman, as I said earlier, is a client of Bank of America. He is somebody who relies on their wealth management advice, and he felt that the bank owed him as much a fiduciary duty in protecting his interests as they did in looking out for Dan Snyder. The other interesting part of this, Craig, that I think is getting a little bit overlooked in the story is that Bank of America gave a lot of rope for Dan Snyder to hang himself. Remember that the allegation that we reported back in February when we first wrote about this $55 million credit line is that the partners said that Snyder was using the team as his personal piggy bank, that he was paying himself $3.5 million for putting the team logo on his private jet, that millions of dollars were being used for his private yachts and for his private airplanes, team money. And so the question then is, why did Bank of America approve $55 million unbeknownst to any of Snyder's partners? And there is some thinking among some of the executives around the league and owners that perhaps Goodell was, with a wink and a nod, allowing Bank of America to give so much debt to Dan Snyder that eventually he would have no choice but to sell the team. Now that puts Goodell in a slightly different frame than what he appears to be in the Rothman complaint. In other words, this was a diabolical play by both Bank of America and the NFL to give Snyder so much debt that the debt service would basically break him and he'd have no choice but to ultimately sell the team.
Yeah, you had a great line in the story about that. And basically the first part is what you just said. The second part is like Bank of America didn't care and the NFL didn't care who got hurt in the process. And that is the crux of this lawsuit is Rothman's like, hey, I'm the guy who got hurt. What about me? I got rights too. And courts certainly don't take lightly banks not performing their fiduciary responsibility. So this could get
yeah. And to be really clear, there was a very set there was an established set of guidelines in the bylaws that anytime any major financial decision was going to be made by the Washington football team, the board members had to approve it. And these three board members who owned 40% of the team knew nothing about Snyder's $55 million credit line and only got suspicious when Snyder didn't pay them a quarterly profit share in 2020. That's really when they started becoming aware that there wasn't nearly as much money here as they believed. And within a year, they sold, and at a very deep discount from what Snyder ended up selling at just 2 years later.
Don Van Natta, of course, from ESPN, is with us here on the Hoffman Show. So, Don, that kind of leads to, I guess, a couple of follow-up things that I think are probably more relevant to our sports radio audience moving forward. First would be the NFL side of this. Then I want to get to the Washington side and kind of the repercussions that we're living right now of all of these decisions. On the NFL side, you have this, and then January 10th, you have the Gruden lawsuit going in front of the Nevada Supreme Court. Is 2024 about to be the year of discovery for the NFL? And if so, like, I know Goodell just got a new contract. I'm sure he's pretty pumped about it right now. Like, what does that mean for the league if there's a bunch of untoward, unsavory things that come out in lawsuits by Goodell and other top league officials?
Well, the league is obviously firing on all cylinders. TV ratings have almost never been higher. But there are two very dark clouds on the horizon. This Rothman lawsuit, which I know concerns some folks around the NFL, but even more is the John Gruden lawsuit, which, as you point out, on January 10th in a Nevada Supreme Court courtroom, the NFL and Gruden will clash. And basically, the decision in the hands of the Nevada Supreme Court is whether the case can move forward that Gruden brought on those leaked emails in open court and look to discovery. So discovery in that case, if that's approved by the Nevada Supreme Court, and any discovery that we can see in the Rothman case clearly concerns the NFL, because they will not have arbitration, which always occurs behind closed doors, which lawyers routinely call a kangaroo court that's rigged for the NFL, will not be able to take place. And so it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the Gruden lawsuit, as the Nevada Supreme Court decides that, and to see what happens here with Rothman's complaint as we move forward in the coming months.
So then the last part of this is, as I mentioned, this kind of reality that we're living right now. And, it's so many ways, so many things that we've talked about have nothing to do with football. But I feel like we always ended our conversations being like, why is the NFL doing this way? Like, why is it taking so long? Why aren't they pushing him out? And we're talking, obviously, the day after Sam Howell gets benched for the Commanders, and we see like this football experiment of 2023 basically come to an end. Rivera's era is coming to an end before our eyes. And my whole thing on the football analysis this season has basically been like, they got screwed. Like, Josh Harris couldn't do anything because this sale closed the day before training camp opened. And Dan Snyder was still in charge during the offseason, and that probably had financial ramifications in terms of player acquisition, coaching acquisitions, all these things that you need to operate a football team were just on pause. So does this help potentially, or could this Rothman lawsuit help potentially shed some light on why this season essentially got sacrificed, and why the NFL didn't move faster after Snyder even hired Bank of America last November?
The Rothman lawsuit, certainly, if discovery is allowed to proceed, could shed a lot of light on why this was a lost season. But even in July, Craig, you could have predicted this was going to be a lost season, because we know already from the reporting we've done and what's been made public that Snyder basically was a cash poor owner of the NFL. There aren't that many of those around, but he really was cash strapped. And, you saw in the offseason, there was very little spending that was done. It was sort of a moribund franchise in neutral. In May, remember, is when we knew that Snyder was going to sell the team to the Josh Harris group. And so for those couple of months, really, the team was in a holding pattern. So it's not surprising to see what has happened. That the Harris Group now has this offseason to do quite a bit, including possibly a look at a rebrand and really make the team their own. But for all intents and purposes, this has still been Dan Snyder's team this fall.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the rebrand. They teach us in journalism school when you do TV interviews. And I know we're doing a radio interview, but that's fine. Always ask the subject, is there anything else you'd rather add or you'd like to add? And for a man of your knowledge, Don Van Natta, with all of the things happening on the upper levels of the NFL and with the Harris Group, is there anything you'd like to add? Rebrand. Have you heard anything about, team president or general manager movement for the Josh Harris Group? What else have you heard about this team right now?
Well, I don't think it's going to surprise any of your listeners to hear that the Josh Harris Group really wants to make the team their own. And I said back in August on Rich Eisen's show that I had heard from somebody in a position to know that a rebrand is something that will be considered. Now, I know that Harris, after that, publicly said, well, it's not something we're going to do during this season, which certainly left open the possibility that after the season, it's something that the owners are going to look at, the new owners. And I believe they are going to do that. Now, whether it happens immediately or it's another year or two, these things take time. Trademarks have to be researched and everything else, but that's part of it. They want to make the team their own. They want to shed any vestige of Dan Snyder, any sheen from Dan Snyder, any sort of gross, greasy streaks from Dan Snyder. They want to remove from the team. Commanders is a name that Dan Snyder came up with. I'm speaking now personally from my own experience and what I've heard and talking to people and what I've gleaned. I'll be very, very surprised if the team doesn't change its name sometime in the next couple of years.
Interesting indeed. Don Van Natta, ESPN award-winning journalist, many awards, many great stories, many visits to the Hoffman Show over the last couple of years. Don, thanks so much for your time as always. Happy holidays, and I think we'll see you out in Vegas for the Super Bowl.
Looking forward to it, Craig. Always a pleasure.
This is the Hoffman Show on the
Wrapping up here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. You know, Anthony, I haven't checked in on the stream today. How are our folks on the stream doing? How's the chat going? I think I got to find out real quick. See what's going on. Hey, YouTube, how we doing? Let's see. Nothing terrible. Someone made fun earlier of my Mike Jones line. I did it in passing. It wasn't. We don't need to. You just let it happen. If you get it, you get it. If not, nobody missed it. That's fine. Person with no screen name. And then someone also made fun of you, Anthony. We had some conversation earlier in the show, and someone caught wind of it. Was someone was how old are you? What were we talking about earlier in the show? I'm trying to remember what it was.
I thought they were just looking at me and asking how old am I. I get that all the time.
Yeah, well, they said 14, so that would be a little young.
Yeah, I don't know what we're talking about.
Something off the top. Like, we were talking about our New Year's plans. We were talking about something else.
Oh, we were talking about me not having a credit card for flights.
Oh, yeah. A specific rewards credit card.
Oh, also, what my weekend plans were, I think I just said I'm going to get a haircut and bring it in.
No, I mean, that part's fine.
New Year
I think it was the rewards credit card situation that we got to get straightened out for you.
Yeah.
So that'll be something. All right, anyway, we don't have much time left. Maryland Hoops coming up at the bottom of the hour, which means it's time for real things, real people said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to suck this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right, Podcast P, Paul George does a great job with his pod, one of the better player pods out there. And yeah, they had a kind of a mailbag question that was basically like, hey, how do you, could an average person read an NBA scouting report? And so they found out.
How easy would it be for Jackie or a regular person to understand an NBA scouting report?
Understand is one thing. To follow it is another thing.
Get to the point.
I would say the language on there is not that far off. Like, we don't have special words. But, could you understand, all right, Dow is shooting 60% when he goes right, 35% going left. In game, are you looking to see which hand he has it in, which side you want to force him to? Are you picking that up in game?
I picked that up.
Okay.
Remember, I pick up your play when you do your, I don't know the name of it, but what's that play you do?
It's just it's the down screen.
The down screen, the V-shake.
I pick up
what if someone says, hey, hedge hard?
What'd you say?
Hedge hard.
Hedge hard?
Mm-hmm.
You gonna cut?
No.
See?
So what if
there be some stuff?
So if we say we gonna
let's
say we gonna ice Dow on the sides, weak him in the middle of the floor, big step up, low man pull in early, top guy X rotate.
I'm gonna say timeout, coach.
Good stuff. I wish I had more time to react to that, but we don't because we have 5 seconds left in the show. We'll see you tomorrow back here on the Team 980. Terps now.
The Team 980.